Hello, this is Matthew DeMo, student number 1006-10337, and Jarvis Ortega, student number 1006-25970. I'm just going to show you our progress for Challenge 3. So we have some visual appeal now, and we have our fish moving around, and you can see if I eat them, a couple things will happen. There's this blood particle effect, and you can also see there is just some basic point system. When you eat a fish, you'll get 1 point. We have these rocks and seaweed at the bottom as well to sort of show that we're in the ocean. And I'm just going to walk you through some of the code. So for the particles, there are a couple of things that happen. I'm just going to go to the update scene function. So when you're updating the scene, we have this collision check that's happening, and when you collide with a fish, you will make a new particle emitter, and you're going to push that into an array of particle emitters. And every frame, or every update, we're going to update and draw the particle emitter, and I will just walk you through what happens in there. So in our particle emitter class, when we're initializing this, we have some number of particles that we initialize it to, and we're going to create an array of positions and the rest of the data members. And we only have one actual structure, one struct that is containing the data members for all of the particles. And we do that so that when we send the positions of the particles to the geometry shader, we're sending that in just one chunk instead of having to go through every particle and get the position for every particle separately. And then we have down here, we're just setting the life of the particles to 0. Each of the particles we're setting it to 0. And then we're just setting up the VBO down here, and going through the update function of the particles. I have the sentinel value, and what this is this is just going to tell me when I should exit, or when all of the particles have died, when they run out of life, and the particle emitter should stop playing and be deleted. So here we're just getting the data members for the current particle. We're going to loop through each of the particles, and we're going to get this array from what's holding the data members of all the particles, and add I, which is going to move to the next particle. I is just the current particle. We have the array, and we're adding I, which is just going to be the next pointer. So at the beginning, the life of all the particles is 0. So we're just going to recreate the particle, and I have this not spawned boolean, and that's just going to tell me that after they've been created the first time, once we recycle them the first time, they're not going to get recycled again. And then I'm going to add one to that sentinel value, and then when that sentinel value is equal to the number of particles, we're going to set playing to false, and in the main we're also just going to delete that pointer from the vector. So if it's here, if it's not, we're just going to set not spawn to false if it hasn't already been spawned, and then we're just going to update. We're going to give them a new velocity and all their forces and stuff like that. And then after we do that, we're just going to update the position and everything based on that. Okay, so that's pretty much the particle emitter process. And the other thing was the deferred rendering, which we didn't have a huge use for, but what we did use it for is we are rendering the particles and the rest of the scene to different frame buffers. So if you go into main, you can see at the top here, we are binding the scene here and then drawing all the objects. And then below that, we are binding the particle frame buffer and drawing all the particles to that. And then we have this composite shader, and what we're doing here is we're just binding the colors for the scene and the colors for the particles. And in the composite shader, we're just going to check is the color in the shader it's either going to be black or it's going to be red. So we're just checking if the red value is greater than just 0.5. It could be any number because it's either going to be black or more than 0, 0 or more than 0. And if the value in the particle frame buffer is greater than that, we're going to use that as the color for our next frame buffer, or that we're going to use that to draw to the scene, and if it's not, then we're going to draw the scene color. So that's just a pretty simple way to do that. It's not very practical, it's just more of a proof of concept. But that's it for me, and I think Jarvis is going to take over.
Hello, so originally this is how our challenge 2 looked like. We changed the models, but it was just this blank screen and just the colors from the loader. So then you look at challenge 3. You'll see how we revamped the visuals of the game. So starting with the character, he has a texture there to differentiate him from the actual other fish. We added a bit more fish too. And in the bottom we have these rocks and seaweed to give a fish a feel for that you're in the sea. It's kind of lagging right now, but there you would hit it, and then a 1 would pop up. That's your score. That's your score for if you get a fish. Oh, there you go, it's running fine now. But fish would pop up, you get a score 1, all that. So basically, how we did it was basically just loading all the meshes and all that. Had to make some new models, so a rock model, seaweed, and a point one. Just do the standard stuff here. You just load it in with a pot. This is to load in the textures that we made. This is to set the pieces. I had individual pieces. I had individual models, so I could place them around wherever I wanted. Also to just separate the field that. And then for the points, here's where I made the point. Here's where I made the point mesh. Set it here. Set the position, color, and rotation. But it actually isn't loaded when you first start it. It's actually loaded in the particle here. It's loaded in the particles. So when the player collides with the fish, the particles will come out, and then the number will pop up. That way, so when the collision's done, the number goes away. And that's for gameplay too. So we revamped the visuals by adding those couple new models, adding some textures to the new fish, and then having the number there. The number there is also just a basic model that I did too. You just change the color from the code, and that's it. Thank you.